So check this out, people. So a few days ago, I made a video talking about not helping strangers, right? And why it's important to focus on the people we care about, right? And that's because a lot of the times when we think about doing good, right, we never think about doing good for those closest to us. We always think about doing good for those outside of our circle rather than, right, for example, when you do business, right, you do business with people you don't know, right? You go to a restaurant, you go out on a date, right? And you take a girl to a nice restaurant, you spend $250, you tip the waitress or the waiter, right? You take the girl home and go to sleep, you're chilling, right? And then, right, after you spend all of that money, right, you go back home and then you find out that your brother, your sister, your cousin, your friends, those who are close to you, not just regular people, but those who are close to you, right, who are there for you, right, you find out that they need it more than that date you went on, right? Because a lot of the times we men will go out on a date with a woman who ain't even worth our time, let alone $250, right? And if I had to choose between giving my money to some stranger, right, over giving my money to someone who's close to me, who I care for, I would rather give the money to someone I care for and keep it within the circle, right? Because when you keep it within the circle, then everybody has it, right? Because when they need it, you got it, right? If you got it, they got it, right? If you got 100 people, right? And out of the 100 people, everybody has $100, right? Everybody has $100 except for one person, right? 99 of them have $100 and that one person has $0. Now, what happens if those 99 people gave that one guy $1? Guess what would happen? They'd all have $99. Every single one of them, including the one who had 0, right? And that's the way it should be, right? I went out on a date once with this young woman, right? She was much younger than most women who I had dated at the time. And before I went out with her, she wanted to sit and talk to me, right? And she explained things to me in this way, and it made a lot of sense, especially for a young girl. Coming from her, I was really impressed. She said to me like this: so instead of you taking me out to dinner, right, and a movie and spending $150 or whatever, right, on the date and giving it to someone else, how about we go to your place, we watch Netflix, order pizza, we chill together, and you give me the $150. Now, I never ever thought about it that way, right? Because think about this. You're going to spend that money on her at the restaurant. And you're going to sit there with her in public with everyone else, chit-chatting, talking to her, wishing that you could spend time with her alone, right? Gassing her up, spending all of this money to try to get her into your bed, into your place, right? And so instead of going through all of that, how about we just go to my place, watch Netflix, order some pizza, chill, and I give you the money. It's the same company, the same girl. You're going to spend the same amount of money, except that this time you have her in a more personal space, right? And you guys can communicate better. And if things go further than, then whatever, then that's what grown-ups do, right? And so that made a lot of sense to me, right? And so I learned that from a young woman. And after realizing that, I understood that if you take what you have, right, and you spend it on the people who are closest to you, right, those who are who are going to be there for you, right? For whatever reason, right? Instead of giving it to a stranger, right? Instead of going to a restaurant, I mean, I get it, right? We want to eat different things, right? I was just going to say, instead of going to a different restaurant, go to your boy's restaurant. Go to the local restaurant from the guy across the street that you know in the neighborhood, right? Keep it in the family, right? That's how people grow. That's how you grow together, right? And so a lot of the times we don't use common sense, right? I would rather call my friend, call my brother, and ask him if he knows about cars, right? And ask him if he wants the job over some other guy, right? I would rather go out on a date, ask the woman to come to my place, no disrespect, I'm not trying to, push up on her or anything, but it does make more sense for us to spend time together in a more private setting, and she take that money that I'm going to give to a complete stranger. At least the woman I'm with gets to benefit of that money, and I get to benefit of her company. It's within the space, within that circle. It just doesn't make sense to me to go out on a date and give that money to someone else. It's just ridiculous, right? And I know it might sound like prostitution, right? When in reality it isn't, right? Because if you're two grown-ups, right, and you take a woman out on a date and you take her to a restaurant and you spend $150, $250 now, I'm going to say, on dinner, and she goes home with you and you sleep with her and you wake up in the morning, then basically she sold herself to you or gave herself to you for a bucket of fried chicken. Just think about that, right? Versus, and I'm just exaggerating when I say for a bucket of fried chicken, because obviously you spent $250 on her for dinner, right? Depending on what she ordered, that's what she gave herself to you for, right? Rather than that money that you gave to the waiter, that money that you gave to the restaurant, you gave to her, and she gets to go home with money in her pocket with a man who knows how to spend time with a woman, right? What's the point of a woman being with a man, right? Or a man being with a woman if either of them cannot benefit from one another? And the fact that women these days have nothing to offer, right? Nothing. Always talking about how they have something to bring to the table and they bring nothing to the table. They think that their vagina is enough, as if though they're not competing with other vaginas, right? As if though there aren't so many to choose from and they think they're special, right? And so a man looks for more than certain things, right? And so I just wanted to, kind of like talk about this, right? And mention that experience that I had, right? Because at the time it sounded like, let's keep it real, it sounded like prostitution with the way she made it sound, but it made so much sense. It just made so much sense when she said, hey, it doesn't make sense for you and I to go out and you give that money to someone else when we can keep it for ourselves, right? Whenever you want to see me, whenever you want to spend time with me, instead of taking me out and throwing that money towards someone else, give it to me. I can pay my bills with that, right? And I'll be glad to spend time with you. Look, that makes a lot of sense to me. Call it what you want, but if there isn't an incentive for a woman, just the same way that if there isn't an incentive for a man, then there's no point. There really isn't. In this day and age, it's not like when I was growing up when men and women got together because they cared for each other. Now, women, all they want is what they want. They want their bills paid, but they don't want to give anything in return, right? They talk about all of this nonsense about what they bring to the table, what their cookies are worth. They're in their 30s, their 40s, and they just don't get it most of the time, right? And so that's not to say that a woman in her 30s or 40s is not special, because they are. We know this. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of women out there who are delusional, who believe that a man should spend his money, the money that he needs to pay his bills, he should pay her bills because she believes that her cookies are worth more than someone else's, right? So much so that she won't even give it up to him until she feels that he's provided enough, right? He's given enough of what he has to her before she can even give it to him. That's what they bring to the table. What they bring is, you give me, and when I feel like it, if I feel like it, then I'll give you, depending on how much you give. Right? And so in the end, fellas, if you're not getting some, then don't give none. And if you're not giving none, then don't get none. It's just the way it is. We're not kids, we're grown-ups, right? The fact is that women have bills to pay, that men have bills to pay, right? We all have responsibilities, and if your partner cannot make your life better, then you need to move on. And if your partner, the man you get with, cannot make your life grow, then you need to find a man who can make your life grow. And if your woman cannot expand your life, be there for you as a support, right? Support system, the way the woman was meant to be, the nurturer, right? If she can't be there, then find a woman who can be, because for every man that isn't good to a woman, there's another man who is, and vice versa, right? And so in the end, we need to start behaving like grown-ups, right? I mean, we behave like children as men. We don't use common sense, right? It took a young woman to make me understand this. Like, let's just be honest. Does any man want their daughter to go out with a man who cannot support her, who cannot pay her bills, right? I mean, if he can do that from the start, then, you know, I'd be glad to accept him as my son-in-law, right? In a lot of cultures, you have to pay for the girl's hand in marriage. You have to pay the family. I mean, call it what you want to call it, right? But it is what it is, right? There is no incentive for the woman to marry a man who cannot support her. And there is no incentive for the man to marry a woman who cannot satisfy him in every way, right? When a man gets with a woman, right, he has to, if he's looking for a serious relationship, right? Because nowadays, I find that men are more serious than women. Women seem to take responsibilities as a joke. You gotta excuse me, people. I have allergies because of this weather. It's terrible. All this pollen. Excuse me. So I'm getting all of these allergies from this weather. I mean, you can see the pollen all over the front of my car. It's crazy. But anyway, we need to understand as adults, right, that, you know, we live in a day and age where men have to start being men and women have to start allowing men to be men, right? We got to stop babying our boys, and we got to stop allowing our daughters to support our boys, because it's ridiculous how in most countries, including this one, it's the woman who works more than the man. It's the woman who nurtures more than the man. She takes care of the family. She holds the family down. When I was a boy, I always believed that the head of household was the woman, because where I grew up, there weren't any men. There was one family who had a father, and that was Jesse's father, who lived downstairs. And he had everything. For Christmas, birthdays, they had everything, right? Because they had a man in the house, right? And I've never seen that before other than in that family, right? And it just goes to show that when there's a man in the house and a woman together, it's easy to partner up and do the things that you have to do to support a family, right? To sustain yourself, right? Because it's not easy, right? But if you stick together and you keep the money within the family, and you keep the arguments, the blessings, the goodness, everything within the family, right? Then together you grow, right? I know they say don't hire family because when you hire family, that creates problems. It does. And just like when you hire strangers, it creates problems. How do you solve the problem when you hire a stranger? You fire them. How do you solve the problem when you hire a family member and there's a problem? You fire them. Case closed. Move on. But the point is that I find here in America, unlike Asia, where they stick together, family are very close. I've never seen anything like it. And so it's easy to go farther, to be more, to do more, to have more, right? When you stick together as a family, which is something we don't do here in America. You see it with Mexicans, right? When they come here and they all live in the same house together, they all pay the rent together, they all work for the same companies, they all contribute to the household, right? And that's something we're not used to here in America, right? And so that's something that we have to learn, right? So after that experience, I realized that if we are to make it, then keep it within the family. Keep it, and when I say family, I don't necessarily mean family, but those who are close to you, right? So thank you people for watching. I don't know if this came out of left field or if it makes sense to anyone, but this is something that's been on my mind for a while and I wanted to talk about it. So again, thank you people for watching. Have a good day and have a good night.